Welcome back. This is the single most important lesson in this entire course. If you understand the difference between a measure and a calculated column, everything else will click. If you skip this, you'll hit confusion in every lesson that follows. So by the end of this lesson, you'll know exactly when to use each one. So let's get into it. Okay, so this is the starter file that you'll get from your course material. What you will notice is, just to speed things up a bit, I've gone and created pages and imported a background for every page just to help you speed up the creation of every single page. These little guidelines, like I explained in the first course, if you have these templates, it makes it a little bit quicker and easier to be able to align your visuals. So we'll use these templates just to help us speed things up a bit. This course is about DAX. We're not too worried about the visual creation. We did touch on that in the first course. Okay, so what we want to understand is the difference between a calculated column and a measure. So if we go to our sales table and we expand it, you'll see we have 3 dots at the end here, and that gives you a whole bunch of options. And here you can see we can create a new measure or a new column. We can also get to that by right-clicking anywhere in the table. It gives us the same list of items. You can also use your menu at the top to do exactly what we're doing here. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start with using the shortcut. So we want to create a new column. So you go down, we click on New Column. You can see a formula bar has opened at the top here. So now what we can do, we can go and we can add our formula. So don't worry too much about what I'm doing. I just want to show you an example. I'll start typing the table name first because I want the column to be in the sales table. So you can see it starts showing you sales here. And then you can see all the fields start coming up for all of the fields that we can create a calculated column on. So what I want to do is I want to sum the quantity. So I can go down and I can just click on quantity. So I'm saying take the sales table, the quantity field, and I want to multiply that. So we can put the multiplication there. And then I want to go back into the sales table and I want to multiply that by the unit price. And we can select that. So you can see here, I'm adding a column. We can name this column whatever we want. So for example, I'm going to call it total sales. And just to show you that it's a little bit different, I'll put CC there for calculated column. When we're happy, we can just push enter. So now you can see we have another item here in our table, and that has this little icon. And that icon is to show that it's a calculated column. So if we go to the table view now, and we go click on sales, you can see what's happened here. We've gone and we've got an extra column with a value in it, and you can see that that value is the quantity multiplied by the unit price. And you can see what it's done. It's gone and added a value for every single row in our table. So this is what a calculated column does. It's literally like adding another row of data to your table. So you can have multiple calculations here, and you can see for every single row, it's gone and done that calculation. Now, to give you an idea of what a measure is, I'm going to go and I'm going to create a measure. So again, I can right click on the sales table. I'm going to click New Measure. And over here, I'm going to call this total sales. And here, for the measure, I can choose sum. Again, it gives us a list of the tables. I'm going to choose the sales table. And for example, in this measure, I'm going to choose sales amount. So what we're saying is we want to sum the sales table on the amount column. If I click enter on that, you can see we now have another item in our table, but that has a little calculator icon. So that's how we can see the difference between a calculated column and a measure. Calculated column has a little icon like that, and the measure has an icon like a calculator. So now what we want to do is we want to just show you how these things work. So if I go back, if I take total sales and I drag it onto the canvas, you can see it straight away gives me 310K. So just like what Power BI did for us by giving us the chance to sum automatically, we've gone and defined a calculation that gives us the same value. And if we change the category, let's go to premium, for example, you can see it changes. If we go and we grab our calculated column and we put it here, it was just a different way of doing it. I showed you how we took the quantity and we calculated the quantity by the unit price. We could have also done a sum of amount. I just thought I'd show you a different variation there. You can see it does the same thing as what we did in our measure. Now, why would we want to have these two different options here? If you think about it, if we had a very big data model that we needed to calculate a lot of different calculations, if we used the calculated column option, we would be adding a lot of data to our model and making it bigger. So here you can see we have an extra column with values in. So this is making this table bigger. When we do a measure is virtual, and when we add it to the report, it calculates the value at runtime. So you can see here for total sales, we don't have another column showing total sales. We just have our little measure. And the nice thing with a measure is we can apply it to any dimension. So for example, here we have our total sales measure. You can see for this little visual, it's highlighting that. If we take any dimension and we add it to that measure, it will automatically calculate to whatever we're looking at as a dimension. So they're very versatile. We can add our total sales measure now to any of our dimensions, and it would straight away calculate the sales for that dimension. So they don't take up any space. They are super efficient. They don't bloat our models, and we can apply them to any of our dimensions. So the best option is always to use a measure. If you can't use a measure, you can use a calculated column. So where we would use calculated columns is maybe if we wanted to categorize. If we look at our table here, we wanted to categorize, say, the size of the purchase. If we said it was between 0 and 500, it was a low value sale, and we wanted to say anything above 500 was a high value sale, we could add that as another column here, where it would add another line item, high value or low value sale. We could then use that field to filter our data. So that would be a use case of a calculated column, to define a category built on a calculation. But we'll touch on those later in the course. So basically, to wrap things up, you're going to use measures 90% of the time. We don't want to use calculated columns unless we have to, because they're going to bloat our model. The way to tell the difference between them is they have two different types of icons. So measures are dynamic. They recalculate based on filters. Calculated columns are fixed. They store a value per row. When in doubt, always choose to use a measure. In the rest of the course, we'll be writing measures, not calculated columns. So now that you understand the difference, let us learn the syntax. In the next lesson, I'll break down exactly how a DAX formula is structured, and you will write your first from scratch. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.